Hey team, Nate here. It's Thursday morning. Super excited about the week as we launch our life group. Super excited about you guys and the part that you're playing in what God's doing and will do through this season. As we jump into Acts and think about what it looks like to give away the life that God's given us by becoming servants, as Jesus invites us to do, and His Spirit certainly leads us. And so I think it'll be a fun time in our groups. I'm excited about how groups are coming together. And I think we built 3 or 4 new groups this fall, and so should be a fun time to jump in together. But thank you for all you're doing, and even some of the new ways we're trying to get at this. My hope is that every Thursday you'll get a little video. This one will be a little bit longer, maybe, as we work through how the questions are going to work, because this is new, and then I'll give you my little timeline thing in case you want to use that with your group as well. But please ask any questions as we get things moving with regards to communication or how we can help your group. Love to make it out to groups. I'm currently going to be leading a couple groups, as well as just trying to make it to sporting events and practices of my own 4 children. So it's a little busy, but I'm looking forward to and supporting you in any way we can. We'll also be kind of getting our mentor coach group leaders up and running, and so you'll get some check-ins through them as well, and I'm excited about that. All right, as we jump in, this week's Acts 1 and 2, Steve's done a whole bunch of heavy lifting, and our life group team then has taken his questions and tried to form that into something that's helpful. Here's what you will get in your email. This is the in-edited version, and so it's not quite ready, but it'll go out in just a few minutes when we finish it off. What I wanted to do was walk you through that and answer any questions you might have, because we do have some changes coming up. So there's a little intro thought that'll be part of every week, and then that first question, great one to use. I think sometimes my group never gets out of this question alone. And that is, what from the Sunday experience? Maybe there was a story, maybe it was just a time during the worship or some leading that our creative arts team gave us, or in particular the Sunday message most spoke to you, struck you, you struggled with. Maybe just a good time to kind of allow that stirring to continue in your group and see if somebody confirms a word that was spoken. So fun to have a gal from our church come into my office this last week, and she started with this. I was spoken to on Sunday, and it wasn't through Steve. God is inviting me, challenging me, prompting me into a new area of ministry, and I just needed to tell someone. And I think that's happened all over the time, and all over the place, and we hope that continues to happen. And so we want to give room for that in our groups as well, because groups are a great place to nurture that, to challenge that, to pray for those kinds of leadings of the Spirit. So you'll have that little question, and then there'll be 5 categories. The first one is lean in, and that's what we hope is an opportunity for everyone in your group to share. Now, this, of course, has some challenges too, because some people don't want to share. But our goal with that question is to ask a question that everyone can answer, and then that will lead us into kind of the topic or the focus of where we're going. So it's a big catch. It's the top of the funnel. And so if you can, just say, hey, the lean-in question, we're all going to answer. So it could be a simple answer. It could be a more in-depth one, but the goal is to get everybody talking, sharing, and a little bit of banter maybe on some of their questions or some of their answers. That's the lean in. The look down. The look down is really focused on the passage. And of course, through Acts, we're looking at some major chunks, especially this first one. This is probably the longest. And so you might just spend some time opening the Word, and you might break it up around your group. You may take the whole thing. You may ask for 1 or 2 people to read. However that works best in your group, rock that. But the look down section is really to ask ourselves, what was it like for them? What were the circumstances? What would it have been like to be on the ground? And Acts will be fun for this, because, it's the most wild and dramatic stories of the church in many ways were happening right then. So what would it have been like to be standing at Pentecost, to be a kid looking on, to be a non-believer? All these kinds of things might just be fun questions in the look down section. We've given you some questions. Take from those, circle the ones you think might work best, and spend some time in that passage as well. The third of the 5 sections is look out. Now, one of the things you'll notice is there's lots of nuance and overlap between these sections, but they do create for us a good flow. The lookout is really bridging, if you will, the context of the early church and what was happening in Acts 1 and 2 and the truth in our world. God's Spirit's still active, God's Spirit's still directing, God's Spirit's still prompting, and the resurrection is still the truth that you and I live by. It's the conviction, if you will, that pushes the courage that gets us out of these seats and into the world on God's mission. And so that's what the lookout section's all about. There's some questions there. You can take a look at those. You can find out which ones you want. Look in then is really taking that truth, which we've taken from the text, to our real worlds, into our real lives. And so how's this interacting with Nate Levering, with who I am, and walking that out? And then the lookout question is, okay, group, okay, individual, how do we do this together? What's God asking me to do? How does this, challenge me today, tomorrow? Here's a place of mission that God's stirring in me. What do you guys think? Here's something I feel like God's asking me to do. And that's sort of the lookout. How do we live this out? We can have all kinds of fun with that, I think. I'm super excited about the potential for that lookout section in really kind of confirming the Spirit's work in each other, saying, yeah, I see that in you. Go. How can we help resource you? How can we help encourage you? How can we help answer some questions you may have in continuing on with what God has in you? All right, we're 6 minutes in. I wanted to do one last thing. If you made it this far in our little video deal this morning, and that is this timeline. I've attached it. I think it's a fun thing. It might be a good first group thing. It might be something, as we talked about in our leaders meeting too, that you send home with your group or email them to work on. But it's a fun opportunity for us to get to know each other, as well as to say, man, our lives take us somewhere. We can see God's hand, God's Spirit's work in them, and they're moving us into His mission because we have all kinds of experiences, all kinds of strengths that are played out. And these timelines can be a fun piece of that. But I thought I'd share mine. Mine starts over here, 4/25/73, only hours away from where Kathy starts. I'm 4 hours older than her, if you didn't know that. I lived kind of a charmed I've lived a charmed life. But for sure, the first 18 to 20 years were extremely charmed. Had a moment in college where I was just being a college kid, not a bad one. I mean, I was very involved in mission and was at a Christian school and pursuing the Lord as best I knew how. But He woke me up one afternoon when my buddy and I were at the movies, at a 2:00 movie in the middle of the afternoon. And the lights went out in the middle of the movie, and all of us sort of wandered out of the darkness of watching a movie, especially when the lights go out in a movie theater, into just the brilliant, bright afternoon sunshine. And I can still remember that sunshine as it penetrated not just my eyes, but my heart. And it was as if God was shaking me sort of down here in the core, saying, Nate, this is not all I have for you. It's time to step up. It's time to get resourced. It's time to lean into my mission. It's time to build the kinds of relationships that I can use to build my kingdom through you in this world. So get off your lazy rear end, get out of the theater, go pursue my light. And for me, it was a turning point. And it seems a little odd, but it was very real for me. From there, my next uptick is Kathy. We met at the end of college. And quickly found out that we were, in love and for each other and these kinds of crazy things. And then, only a couple months actually after we had met each other, and we're really looking at, I think we're going to pursue marriage and a life together. Kathy's mom passed away. And that for me was one of those, it was a first, where death was close, where struggle, where grief, all these kinds of things. Lived in Seattle, lived with her dad, who had just lost his wife, lived with her sister, who had just lost her mom. Walked through that kind of grief and yet celebration. We knew where she was and who she was with, but just a struggle. Out of that then comes our wedding. I could go on, but this, is long enough. Not long after getting married, you'll see here, on my 6-month anniversary, many of you know my story. It was, cancer. It was, am I going to live? It was put life on hold and moved to Palo Alto because I was getting treatment at Stanford, and definitely a downtick. But as we describe these, as people in your group walk through these, one of the things, of course, we realized is that was a time for Kathy and I where we became one in a unique kind of way. That struggle, that fight, not just us, but our family, our church, it was a very unique time. From there, we went to Russia for a couple years and just lived out the adventure of following God, of being a young couple, of just wildness, all kinds of fun stuff there. Sierra Bible Church has become for us the last 20 or so years of all kinds of life and ministry and story and relationship. And then out of that, the birth of our own two girls that at the front tick of this cancer journey, we were told we would never have on our own. But interesting, back in this story, God put on our heart the opportunity of adoption, which, after we had our own kids and we graduated from school and got our masters and those kinds of things, which were upticks and challenging growth opportunities, down comes my dad's cancer. And walking through that, and walking through retirement, and walking through, as we continue to walk in that, the struggle of watching your dad suffer. And many of us have been there, but it's been a challenge for us as a family, a beautiful challenge, but a challenge. And then, of course, out of that, as I had mentioned, that God, invites us a year and a half ago or something to do something great for him. And for us, that's that picture of adoption. And so, again, telling our stories in a way that maybe we would spend some time each week getting to know each other, figuring out what it looks like to love each other, to have things in common. And so this little tool is attached. Feel free to have some fun with it. Use it how you want. Or maybe just share your story as a way of inviting people in to what your group's going to be all about, connecting with others and growing together. Thanks again for all you're doing. Shoot me an email, Nate at Sierra Bible, if you have any questions. Love you guys. Take care.